Welcome to the Chapter 25 Flipped Classroom. This chapter is about the New World, the Americas and Oceania, or the European colonization of this world. And I wanted to start out by showing you this map because the map is extremely interesting in that it's a little bit different than maps that you may have seen in the past. If we look at Latin America, you can see that there's a different pattern of colonizations than you might have seen or than you might have even put on your own map. What is different about this map than you've seen in previous maps of colonization? Think about it as you move north and up. Um, some of these places are entirely filled in with color by different colonizers. And here's a list of the colonizers. So this will be one of the questions in the review. What is so different about this map than others that you've seen with colonization? And what might that tell you about the economic goal or the nature of colonization? So here are the main ideas of this chapter. Before the end of the 15th century, the Western and Eastern hemispheres existed almost in complete isolation from one another. And this is really important because it highlights the change in the Columbian Exchange. This situation began to change after the voyage of Columbus in 1492. And from this point on, the contact between the two hemispheres would increase dramatically, often with disastrous consequences, especially for the Americas or the people of the Americas. The Europeans, with military and technological advantages, imposed their will on the Americas. Ironically, however, much of the European success wasn't based on their military advantages or a weapon that they created, but a weapon that they didn't even know they possessed: smallpox. Smallpox completely decimated the Americas and led almost to an entire extinction of groups of people. And in some cases, that actually did lead to their extinction, like with the Taino. The massive migration of Europeans into the Western Hemisphere brought an astonishing transformation of American society. And Australia and the Pacific Islands would undergo a similar experience about 200 years later. So now let's move into the beginning of this collision. The first people in the Americas to come into contact with Europeans were the Taino of the Caribbean. After Columbus made Hispaniola, the island that he arrived on, his base of operations and established the fort of Santo Domingo, he initially attempted to build trading posts to allow European merchants to trade with the indigenous population. As you'll remember, this was a common strategy of the Europeans. The experience of the Taino, ranging from forced labor under the encomienda to death from smallpox, and we'll talk more about the encomienda in a little bit. This set a precedent for other societies in America, and this would happen over and over. So we can see that we'll have Europeans coming in, trading, and then after they are trading, they establish a desire for some kind of good, be it sugar, gold, etc., and then they'll use a system of forced labor, and the indigenous population goes dramatically down because of disease. Between 1519 in 1521, Hernan Cortes and a small force of 450 men brought down the powerful Aztec state. This is the powerful Aztec leader, Montezuma. Now, the reason that the Europeans were able to do this is because of both technological advances, which you'll read about in Seven Myths, the types of things that they brought with them, such as steel. But also there were many divisions in the Aztec state. The Aztecs ruled based on terror, almost like the Hunger Games, because they used a lot of sacrifice and war to keep people in line. And this really bred dissent amongst the people who existed under the Aztecs' rule. One of these people is a very influential woman named as Malinche, or to the Spanish, her name was Donna Marina. Her brother was a captive and then sacrifice of the Aztec Empire. She was from one of these allied tribes. When Cortez came in, she became his translator and later even his, not necessarily his wife, but his partner. Now, she communicated with the local tribes and with the Aztecs on Cortez's behalf, and we'll see this in a codex on the next slide. Interestingly, she is not featured in any of the Spanish artwork from this time period. Apparently, they did not want to give her a spotlight. Her children that she has with Cortez are the first mestizos, ushering in a new social group of people. In the end, however, the death blow to the Aztec state quite literally was delivered by smallpox. 90% of the people of the Aztec Empire were dying and collapsing from this disease. In the 1530s, Pizarro and the Inca also have a meeting, and the Inca suffer a similar fate to the Aztecs. Pizarro tricked the Incan king, Atahualpa, into becoming a captive of the Spanish by saying that he was going to negotiate with them. And then the Pizarro killed the king. He beheaded him. And then also, again, the disease was really the blow. The straw that broke the camel's back, you could say. Here we can see Malinche. Take a look at these pictures. You can see some of these people in the picture. Look at all of their different shields. Now, as a mini historian, what do you think these different shields might indicate? If you've guessed different groups of people under the Aztecs, you would be right. And here we have Cortez, and he is delivering, these messages through Malinche to these different groups of people. So the rule of conquistadors such as Cortez and Pizarro was very short, and they were quickly replaced by formal Spanish imperial rule. So this was throughout Latin America or South America and Mesoamerica. And there's one theme that I want you to keep in mind. In South and Latin America, there's exploitation, not necessarily colonization. The Spanish weren't very concerned, and the Portuguese weren't very concerned with getting large populations of Europeans in these places. They were more concerned with procuring different goods, gold, silver, sugar, etc. So in order to do this, they founded all kinds of new cities. These were government centers, and they became kind of the centers of colonization. Cities such as Mexico City, on top of the Aztec capital, Lima in Peru. Um, these were two of the big cities. Also, St. Augustine, Panama, Concepcion, Buenos Aires, all these different places became centers of power. We'll talk about the way that government worked in just a moment in the second part of the PowerPoint. But first, I want to talk about the Treaty of Tordesillas in 1494, which was a dividing line between Portugal and Spain in the New World. And we'll take a look at that line in just a moment. Um, Portugal largely ignored Brazil, which they received in the Treaty of Tordesillas, until they figured out that they could produce tons and tons of sugar there, which led to them quickly establishing a presence. And throughout the Latin American world, cities of New Spain, New Castile, and Brazil took on a European feel, but the countryside remained indigenous in character. And we'll see this when we watch the movie The Mission, or part of the movie The Mission. The Spanish and Portuguese viewed the New World again as an opportunity for exploitation rather than a center of colonization. This is where we're going to stop to continue to the second part of the PowerPoint.